So hi, how you doing today? So I had said that I would do another video about basically AEG and uh, uh I'm blanking on his name. Philip Anschutz and Neil Gorsuch. If I saw another update, I didn't think I would have one this soon, but when I went to go look up information on this, to make sure I didn't miss anything, it turns out I did miss an update from this year actually. So, today we're going to be talking about a Supreme Court case in which Neil Gorsuch has refused to recuse himself, even though he is connected, even though he could basically, benefit from it. Public perception wise, he could be seen to have a vested interest in the outcome of this case, particularly. Um, so yeah, so that's a whole fucking thing. Um, and today we're gonna be talking about that because basically with the corrupt things that is happening within the back end of the music industry and within the Supreme Court and within the giants, within the shareholders of the major corporations that own everything that happens in the United States, it's just kind of like, you feel like you're in this evil, like, fuckery, like, I don't know. So there's this TV character, and I've been sharing a couple of snippets from her. Her name is Alexis. She's from the TV show Dynasty, and there's two versions of Dynasty. There's an old version and a new version, but fun fact, I was actually named after the old Dynasty Alexis. Um, so, yeah, I think that's interesting. So, I've been kind of like sharing little quotes of her because why the fuck not? It's my namesake, right? But in this case, I feel like the little clip I kind of want to share doesn't necessarily apply to how, I mean, in a way, it kind of speaks to in my head how I feel about these people, but it more applies to them. Hi, Kimmy, how are you today? It's good to see you. So I was literally just talking about Neil Gorsuch of the Supreme Court because he's connected to Philip Anschutz. And dude, yeah, it's been a whole mind fuck. So there's a Supreme Court case coming out where they're trying to overturn um what's like something related to the Chevron case where uh they're trying to basically make it so there's less regulations under the law when it comes to what's happening in the environment with like these big oil companies particularly. So it's kind of scary because it's basically
And there's
like,
absolutely nothing you can do about it.
hi, my name is Lexie, also known as and doing business as Deaf Child. In 2022, my company was listed as number 14 best Louisiana events companies and startups. I have been doing business as Deaf Child since 2013. I have my Bachelor of Science in Music Industry Studies and Business Administration, and deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. And I've got about 50 certifications in marketing and sales that you can find at noladeafchild.com. Okay, so I have some articles that we're gonna look at. I'm doing like a third less than what we were looking at last time because last time I basically did like the entire history of the back end of the financial, like where the money flows with AEG, which is owned by Philip Anschutz. Um, and so Philip Anschutz, he has this basically he's been called out over the past because of his ties within the political environment. He's known for backing super PACs, political action committees that funded the abortion ban, and that are against, that are anti-LGBTQIA. He is a climate change denier, and a bunch of other things as well that I feel are kind of against human rights. So the Guardian, they published an article in January of this year, and it's called Gorsuch urged to recuse himself from Supreme Court case over ties to the oil baron. And that's why I did this live today, because that's what I was saying. Like, if I saw that a Supreme Court case was going to happen that involved both of them, I said I'd cover it. So that's what's happening now. Um, and yeah, so 2 days before the oral arguments in the U.S. Supreme Court, um, oh, I'm not, so yeah, I get so excited with chats because I have like, no followers. So whenever someone's like actually talking with me, I get like so excited that I can be a little like scatterbrained with actually doing the live. So I'm sorry if it's not like flowing well, but um, yeah, no, this case is fascinating to me because I think it's interesting how it kind of shows where the money goes with our corporations, because most of the entertainment industry, for example, is controlled by AEG and Live Nation, and AEG has a very close, relationship. There's a trail of a relationship between AEG and Neil Gorsuch. And so with this Supreme Court case, these sources I'm going to show kind of explain how Neil Gorsuch basically benefits financially because of his relationship with Phil Anschutz, who is proven to have donated millions to Neil Gorsuch to put him in that position. Um, yeah, so that's why there's like all these articles about them both. Um, so it's right now Neil Gorsuch is refusing to recuse himself over close links to a billionaire oil baron who has hosted him for weekends and who stands to benefit from the ruling at hand. And I don't know how to pronounce this person's last name. I think it's like Kichone. Maybe it's Ciccone. I had a teacher named Santucci, and I know someone named Mancini. I kind of, so is it Ciccone or Kitchone? But then I know somebody, then there's Julius Kaiser. So, like, I don't fucking know how to say, like, Italian words, dude. That looks Italian. Okay. Sorry. Fucking, but this person said not only would overturning Chevron deference, I don't know if I'm saying that word right, strip power from federal agencies, harming their ability to serve everyday Americans, but now we know billionaire oil baron Philip Anschutz would score big from a favorable ruling by his friend on the High Court. And basically, the case is called I don't know if I'm saying this right, Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo. And it considers whether the National Marine Fisheries Service can compel fishing vessels to pay the salaries of federal observers, ensuring stocks are not overfished. But it has a much wider implication because it's thought likely to remove the Chevron deference, a principal name for a 1984 case involving the oil giant, which established the federal agencies have the discretion to issue regulatory rules without congressional approval. So we can process this all. That's kind of also why I have a few different sources on it, because whenever I look at it in different words, I process it. Um, and all of these sources are linked in the description of this video. And if I have to move it, it'll go in the comments. But, yeah, fucking. So, Ben Professor is a professor of law at the University of Florida, and he told a podcast that the people who want Chevron to fall see the courts as a more reliable enforcer of their view of the policy, and they don't want agencies to have the ability to expand or contract their mission. So my perception of that is people think that they will have more luck getting their way in the courts than being regulated by someone else. Um, and then we have a couple of other articles that explain the financial ties too. So I went over in my article, my last video before this, goes into pretty big detail of a variety of the connections that Neil Gorsuch. Oh, Chicone, that makes sense. I think Chicone. And wait, shit. Now I don't know if I'm saying you're pronouncing it Che or Chi. Fuck, I'm overthinking it. Because here's my problem. I know a little bit of Spanish, but I'm also learning another language. And then I know Pidgin Sign English, but then I know American Sign Language, and then I know English, and then I can't hear all of the letters of the alphabet. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying half the time. Um, but I mean, I do try really hard to get pronunciations right though for identity because with identity that's really important to me to not erase, all of that. But yeah, fucking, I can't say, but I can't pronounce shit for shit. Um, but yeah, so Neil Gorsuch, what used to be represented, used to represent Philip Anschutz, and they both have connections to the Code Brothers. They're both in different regulations and societies together. Um, and let's see. I'm looking to see if this article has anything else. They're going basically into Neil Gorsuch and Anschutz being homophobic and stuff, but we covered that in my live last night. Um, oh, damn. Okay, so this one article says renewed focus on Gorsuch and Anschutz comes as outlets led by ProPublica have detailed close relationships between right-wing justices, particularly Clarence Thomas, and Republican donors, prominently including Harlan Crow, a property magnate and collection of memorabilia linked to Adolf Hitler and other dictators. So that's interesting. So they deny wrongdoing, but report of his acceptance of and failure to declare gifts, including luxury travel, um, property purchase, and school fees, have fueled calls for ethics reform. So I guess that speaks to a sense of the culture. Yeah, I can't pronounce shit for shit, Kimmy. It's just a thing, man. E for effort. Like speech therapy is hard. Um, but hearing aids were interesting. I'm not wearing my hearing aids now because I don't need to listen to anybody because it's like, what the fuck is the point? So hearing aids are interesting because it's it's in your head. It's different than wearing an earbud because it's earbud is in your ear, but the hearing aids go deeper in your ear hole when you're doing unless you're doing a dome. Then it's a different thing because, but then it's dude, yeah, fucking. I don't know how to explain it, but the first time I wore hearing aids, it reminded me of when I took some acid because I was like, why is there more voices in my head right now? But sorry. Because I didn't get hearing aids until after I graduated college. So I took acid before I wore hearing aids. Um, fucking. But I was just raw dogging life, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so fucking. Yeah. Um, All right. So the reason that they're talking about the unethics and the code of conduct within the Supreme Court and the culture there is also the same lady whose name I can't pronounce. We think it's Chichone. Chichone. That sounds right. Um, but she said this is just the latest in a long pattern of cozy relationships between Supreme Court justices and billionaires, creating conflicts that undermine the legitimacy of the court. And I could totally see that because it's not that like I want to be like yeah, the Supreme Court just so happens to really suck ass, but it's not like I'm trying to single out these dipshits. I'm sure there's other people before them that really suck too. Um, but it's more of so of I think my age, right? Because I am 30 years old. So up until I was 18, I was just getting through high school. Then from 18 to 22, getting through college, and then from 22 till about 25, 26, complete fucking mental breakdown. Um, finally start to work on myself over the last few years, and we're here now. So it's like, I feel like life is so hard that sometimes you don't get to like even if you experience different forms of discrimination or things happening to you, you don't get to process it or learn more about what was happening until later or after the fact. And I don't know, I feel like that's really relevant with my perception of the music industry and the Supreme Court and the connection particularly. And New Republic has an article about all this too. Um, and it's called Billionaire Poised to See Return on Investment in Neil Gorsuch. And it says Philip Anschutz has funded some of the parties involved in the case the justice will hear on Wednesday. He also has extensive ties to the justice himself. So so everything in the argument for this law case is all within the realm of Philip Anschutz's financial, like I don't know if he necessarily financially controls everything, but he financially benefits. He's been financially invested. Um, oh, so he inherited this shit from his dad. They never knew that tidbit. Go figure. There's like I was reading the statistics of billionaires that inherit their wealth. Very small percentage actually make it on their own, if you can call it that, because it's typically exploitation of labor. Um, so yeah, so for 10 years, starting in 1995, so I was literally born at the end of December in 93, so literally for like 1 year of my life, I was only 1 years old. Like, so for 29, yeah, so 10 years starting in 95, Gorsuch worked at a firm representing Anschutz business interests. So that's at least 29 years of them having documented financial ties together. Um, and the 84-year-old magnate personally campaigned for Gorsuch to be appointed to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals during the George W. Bush administration. Damn. Um, so, you know, um, and then Gorsuch co-owned a property with Anschutz's chief counsel and an Anschutz executive, and sold it off just after his appointment to the Supreme Court. And so now, Wednesday, Neil Gorsuch will be hearing oral arguments in a case that could significantly ease regulations on Anschutz's businesses. Oh shit! Oh, thank you. The quarter life crisis is no joke. The quarter life crisis was no joke. No, I appreciate you. Yeah, no. So my quarter life crisis, I lost my entire sense of community. Um, Speaking of no jokes, I'm like, I really, literally, I was like, you know what? This is. I got ready for bed, and I was like, yeah, I was flossing my teeth at like 10:59, and then I was like, at 11 o'clock, let me hop on this live. So I'm in my fucking bathrobe. Um, but so I was like, wait, let me make sure nothing's popping out. But yeah, fucking the my life is a joke. I feel like sometimes I look back on me and I'm like, I'm really proud of me, and sometimes I'm just like, dude, you're fucked up. Keep working on your shit. Holy fuck. But um, like the reason I got into PR and marketing is because like if you like Google my family, it's just not good. Like my uncle was arrested in the 90s. He was charged over 118 charges regarding methamphetamines and stealing an 18-wheeler. And his name's Robert Carney. So if you Google Robert Carney 118 charges, you can find the case. And then in the interview, he's like, "Yeah, I've never done meth before," and I'm like, "That's a lie." But I'm sorry, fucking. So when I think about where I came from to where I am now, but I don't know how I got there. See, sometimes I'm like, am I an oversharer? But then again, it's like whatever. People can Google all of this anyway. Um, fucking, it's like when something gets turned into a court case, it's no longer private. It is public record. Um, but dude, same. You understand? Yep. And yeah, the deafness runs in your family as well, I'm assuming. Or I wonder if that's a sporadic deafness. But you know what? That's the Alexander Graham Bell inside of me coming out, I think. Um, I've been doing like a whole series of reading like the books by Alexander Graham Bell, and they're so bad. It's so fucking bad. But now I'm a little obsessive with the geneticness of deafness because I did my genealogy, and so like Helen Keller is my 10th cousin, for example. Um, so she's a long distance cousin of mine, and I have several deaf cousins. So twins run in my family, and so does deafness. My dad's deaf, grandparent deafness runs on both sides of my family. Um, several cousins on my mom's side deaf, uncle's deaf, aunt's deaf, grandparents deaf, and my dad's deaf. My dad's side, a lot of people deaf. So I think like that's interesting because twins and deafness run on both sides. So I've been thinking, okay, I'm sorry, fucking stuck focusing on the topic. If I know how to do that, but yeah, fucking. Wait, where the fuck was I? Fucking. And then sometimes I'll be like signing because I'll be start signing without thinking about it kind of like on here, but then when I start reading, I notice that like on the lives where I'm reading a lot, I find myself only speaking because I have a hard time speaking, reading, and signing all three at the same time. I can barely do one of those things. Two of those I'm fucking up big time. Um, all three, it's not happening. So I was like, let me put captions. Um, but yeah, you know what? Also, too, another reason I like speaking. Oh, meningitis. That's interesting. Yeah, I have sensorineural deafness, and it's genetic. I was born deaf. I've been deaf my whole life. Fucking, hey, double trouble. Fucking, but yeah, fucking. I said I was gonna focus, and here I am not doing that. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Oh yeah, you know what? One more fucking off-topic point though on this deaf shit. I do like talking as a deaf person and representing that, not in an oralist way where I think it's better to speak than sign because I fully believe in sign language access first, but in more of a 90% of deaf people are born to hearing people that don't learn sign for us. So many people will discredit your deafness just because you can speak. They'll say you're not deaf because you're talking. So, I like seeing all deaf people, whether or not they're signing or speaking, just any deaf representation, I think is super important to me. So that's another reason, like, I'll be fucking talking and I don't know. Like, people will give me shit because I'm not signing sometimes, and I'll be like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know I needed to perform for you. And half the time, it's people that don't know sign language, though. But, okay. Um, And that's another thing. Most of my audience doesn't know sign language. So I use sign language mostly on TikTok lives where there's no captions because then I need to provide the access. But then it's like, I don't want to exploit the culture. Okay, fucking back to topic. God, can I do this? Um, but yeah, fucking. So the Chevron deference it's a legal precedent and it grants federal agencies the authority to interpret the federal statute. Um, and it dates to that 1984 case. Gorsuch's own mother was the head of the Environmental Protection Agency when the NRDC sued it to block a set of industry friendly rules that the EPA was proposing to institute. So Chevron, which stood to benefit from the lax new regulations, brought a countersuit after the NRDC won the case against the EPA. An ensuing Supreme Court decision in the oil company's favor, handed down after Neil Gorsuch's mother had been forced to resign over unrelated matters, established what is now known as the Chevron deference, which holds that federal courts should largely defer to federal agencies' interpretation of congressional statutes. And so they're saying then while the initial decision was against environmentalists, it's since been used to uphold more stringent environmental rules, among other federal regulations that businesses and especially corporate polluters dislike. Overturning it has become a prize for the right-wing legal movement. So, Anschutz funded Americans for Prosperity, which is the right-wing nonprofit representing plaintiffs in the Loper case, which is the case we're discussing now. So, isn't that interesting? So, Anschutz funded the plaintiff, the nonprofit representing the plaintiffs in the case where he stands to benefit from less regulations, where he funded Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, where Neil Gorsuch is benefiting financially from these decisions. But yeah, okay, he doesn't think he needs to recuse himself. That is interesting to me. Interesting. Um, And here's, oh yeah, I have no legal experience, but I have worked at two law firms. I've worked at the law office of Christopher Zeta, and I've also worked at the Con law firm, um, and in New Orleans. And so I've done marketing for both, and fucking I've done legal research for both of them as well in my role as a marketing agency, and I now actually have like all of the Louisiana, like the civil court procedure, all of the books, like so many fucking books. I use them as bookends now to hold up my other books, and it's all color coded. Um, but fucking yeah, so my role, like, I know about the law in terms of like promoting it because it's been my job to sell it, but I don't think I'm an expert on it. I'm just fascinated by it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I have my Bachelor of Science in the Music Industry Studies and Business Administration. And so that's also how I got to this case because Philip Anschutz is the owner of AEG, which is Entertainment Group. Um, so yeah, and fucking, but yeah, this the way this article ends is it says should Gorsuch eventually opt to side with Loper Bright Enterprises and overturn the Chevron doctrine, it'll cement the Supreme Court's reputation as a pay-for-play venue where billionaires can fetch a big return on their investments and future Supreme Court justices and the organizations that help them into their robes. Hey shit, that's a good way to end the article though. That's like a hard line. Oh, you know what else I was thinking too? Because Kimmy, I know you're a paralegal. Um, at both law offices where I worked at, the lawyers are amazing. I know they do so much work, but the paralegal does so much work. I never realized how much work a paralegal does before I worked. Like I guess I didn't understand the difference between a paralegal and a typical receptionist. Not that, like, A receptionist works hard, you know. I've been a receptionist before. A receptionist does a lot of work, but it's just a different role being a receptionist versus a paralegal. And I didn't know that until I worked at a law office. Paralegals do so much shit. Holy fuck. You're like a lawyer, except for you don't go to court. But, well, the one I worked with was like so much shit. Does so much shit. I mean, you go to court, but you don't make the arguments. Well, you can go to court. You don't have to go to court, depending on what you want to do. I don't know. But, all right, fucking. This next article is from accountable.us, and it was referenced in the other ones we were talking about. And it's called New SCOTUS Conflicts Spark Recusal Calls Ahead of Chevron Challenges. Um, oh, you know what? Honestly, I'm thrilled that you commented on my fucking thing because I wanted to go follow you if you had a channel and I couldn't find you and I looked you up. So now I can follow you. Okay, so this is from January 2024. And fucking the reason it also talks about everything that we've been talking about before, so I'm not gonna try not to reread the same things, but there's two quotes from the Caroline. I think we think it's Ciccone. Did we say no? Ciccone. Fuck. Yeah. Can I call you casserole? It's not racist because I'm white, right? Are you white? Or is it xenophobic? Is that xenophobic? I'm sure I have some Italian in me if I go back far enough. But I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna shut the fuck up. I was about to call you Caroline Casserole. Fucking. Okay, so she said, not only would, there I go assigning a gender to you. I don't even know if you're a she. This person said, not only would overturning Chevron deference strip power from federal agencies, harming their ability to serve everyday Americans, but now we know billionaire oil baron Phil Anschutz would score big from a favorable ruling by his friend on the High Court. This is just the latest in a long pattern of cozy relationships between Supreme Court justices and billionaires, creating conflicts that undermine the legitimacy of the court. It's far past time for these justices to stop putting their billionaire pals over Americans. Recusal from cases where they have glaring conflicts of interest is the very least they can do to restore some semblance of credibility and integrity to our Supreme Court. But here's what else I was thinking. Our very Supreme Court is based on genocide and indigenous erasure. So what about land back? Because were we ever credible to begin with? Because our Supreme Court is all about trying to fuck over the treaties of native people. So what about land back? Why don't we just let native tribes be in charge? Oh, Kimmy commented, I tell ignorant gatekeepers and basic critics what I think of their opinions with my hand. They probably wouldn't like that because there's a couple fingers nice. So, you don't right? Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, I hate when people like they learn like sign language, but then they only want to like learn like the bad words. They don't. And I'm just like, but there's so much more to the language than that. Come on. Um, but I mean, it is fun though to curse. Like, I'll be like, okay, okay, okay. Um, fucking. Okay, so clear conflicts of interest. Anschutz's oil and natural gas company had profited from challenging regulations made possible under Chevron. After suing the Bureau of Land Management over a requirement to report water contaminants used in its fracking operations, which would have added a measly $11,000 to the cost of each well it operates, Anschutz's company delayed a final ruling until the Trump administration took office and dropped the suit. Anschutz's company leads the Petroleum Association of Wyoming Trade Group, the voice of the oil and gas industry in Wyoming, which regularly lobbies against the environmental regulations that would be threatened with the overturning of Chevron deference. The association even praised Justice Gorsuch when he implied in his West Virginia versus EPA concurring opinion that the Chevron doctrine is unconstitutional. Fucking yeah. Yeah. So, um, basically they were trying to demand to Chief Justice John Roberts, ahead of all of this from accountable.us, that he would ensure conflicted justices recused themselves from key cases. And the letter highlighted previously revealed conflicts of interest in this case involving Justice Clarence Thomas's extensive participation in co-network events. Co-network events is also a connection that Neil Gorsuch and Phil Anschutz have. Um, and then this other article is from Daily KOS, whatever the fuck that means. And it's by Charles J. from January this year. And it says more ethic. What's the fuck? It says more ethics at stake. Gorsuch asked to recuse himself from Supreme Court case over ties to oil baron. And yeah, so fucking I like the way they worded this one. Because everybody else that we kind of looked at so far has been a bit more subjective. I mean, they've called it out. They've made some really good quotes that I like, but I really liked how they brought out this one where they're like his ties to money and power are being called into question because those are simple words. Does all this other shit that we've been saying, I don't know what the fuck these words mean barely. Like I kind of know what they mean. I think I know what they mean, but like I can't really explain it, right? Oh, you're a consultant, not a paralegal. Oh, but Bree calls you both because you do a lot of paralegal work to help out with her channel. Oh, that's cool as shit. Yeah, I like that. Technically, I'm a consultant too, because like, so right now I work with two different companies primarily. Like one, I'm on retainer with one company for 5 hours a week, and I'm on retainer with another company, flexible between 15 to 30 hours a week. So, um, and then I don't talk about I'll talk about who I worked with before, cause fuck it, you can't touch my money from what I worked with before. But I never talk about who I'm working with right now online, cause I'm not letting anyone touch my money. Suck my dick, bitches. Not you, Kimmy. You're awesome. But other bitches, you're the shit, Kimmy. Fucking. Sorry, I'm like this. But yeah, no, finding you on Bree's channel was great. And I love both, like I love her content and I love like when you pop up cuz you're like, "Hey, I'm here." But no, I'm fascinated how you but basically with your workflow. I love your workflow. I think those are the words I'm looking for. Yeah. I'm blanking. Um but yeah, fucking okay, so dude, this person, so Philip Anschutz was represented by Gorsuch as a private lawyer before all this, so that's well known. So they have like a long history, of doing business together, and they're still in business now. Fucking yes, consultants in the deaf community unite. I love that. See, that is good because that is actually I think what's like super important. Um, I am only one of four deaf owned like marketing, like agencies that I can think of. And another one I know is Dozanu. Hi, Kay Smith. How are you today? It's good to see you and thank you for being here. I hope you're having a good day. Kay Smith. So my mom's last name is Smith. Well, her maiden name, her family name is Smith. So now I'm like, are you my family? Are you related to me? Who are you? Just kidding. um, but Smith is such a broad name. But yeah, fucking. All right. Uh, let's see, where we at? Oh God, I always get the song in my head. But I'm like, peanut butter jelly. Okay. So, even though it's about the National Marine Fisheries Service, it applies to enforcing agency regulations in general because Supreme Court cases are used for precedent in general cases. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's why it goes to the Supreme Court. It's to make decisions that impact general shit. Um, typically. Fucking. Oh, you know what, Kimmy? Another fucking coverage I did was on Aixon versus Lofer. Um, and if you can convince Brie to cover that ever, that would be tight because I'd be interested in her opinion on it. But I mean, it's and maybe that would be a bad thing to cover though because it's not trending and it already happened and I don't know if any updates are gonna happen. But Aixon versus Lawfer is totally unrelated to this live topic. However, it's about a tester's right to sue under the American with Disabilities Act. Um, and they're basically trying to say that if you're disabled and you don't plan on going to a business, it doesn't matter whether or not they're providing access to you or other disabled people. But then it's like, how can I plan to go to a business if they're not providing access to me, assholes? So, um, anywho, fucking, I don't think I explained that right, but I just remember reading about the case and getting really pissed off. And you know what? It's kind of related though because it's the same Supreme Court judges that we're talking about today that made those decisions. So I'm going to tell myself that I'm not completely off track. Um, I'm on I'm on, a different train perhaps, but same track. Okay. Fucking is the train gonna crash? Um, but yeah, fucking. And another thing I want to point out about people urging um, the Neil Gorsuch to recuse himself is before, and I showed the source on this in the live I did last night. Which is linked in the description of this video. He fucking, a bunch of people were asking Neil Gorsuch in 2016, 2017, 2018 that if something happened with Phil Anschutz, would he recuse himself? And he was basically like, I'll think about it. And he fucking didn't. He didn't recuse himself, asshole. Oh yeah, but the case is Aixon. I finger spelled that right and said it wrong. Aixon, um, versus Laufer, Laufer. And Aixon is the hotel. And part of the reason the case is moot anyway is the hotel switched owners. So the case was about the former owner and now it's owned by someone else. So that's part of why the case is moot. And another reason why the case is moot is Lawfer's attorney got involved in some shit. And so she wanted to get a new attorney, but she couldn't afford that. But so she wanted to dismiss the case anyway because she needed a new attorney anyway. So two of those reasons she had asked the case to be dismissed summer 2023, right? And the Supreme Court denied dismissing the case in the summer of 2023, even though she asked for it to be dismissed for those reasons. And then after that, they set in the fall and in the court case was there's two meetings that happened in October and December, and the judgment came out in January. Um, and they basically were saying that that in the case that it was moot about whether or not a tester should be able to sue for accommodations if the tester themselves doesn't need the accommodations. But the whole point of having a tester to sue for accommodations is because we can't fucking afford attorneys. Sorry I'm yelling at you, but okay. All right. So I'm mad at these fucks we've been talking about, not you guys. And fucking so the Supreme Court. So, in a story under the headline, Neil Gorsuch has a web of ties to secretive billionaire, the Times wrote, Mr. Anschutz's influence is especially felt in his home state of Colorado, where years ago Judge Neil M. Gorsuch, a Denver native, the son of a well-known Colorado Republican and now President Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court, was drawn into his orbit. As a lawyer at a Washington law firm in the early 2000s, Judge Gorsuch represented Mr. Anschutz, his companies, and lower-ranking businesses and business executives as an outside counsel. I cannot speak. In 2006, Mr. Anschutz successfully lobbied Colorado's lone Republican senator and the Bush administration to nominate George Gorsuch to the federal appeals court. And since joining the court, Judge Gorsuch has been a semi-regular speaker at the Moguls' annual dove hunting retreats for the wealthy and politically prominent at his 60-foot square mile Eagle's Nest Ranch. Yeah. So this, I linked to this article in my post in my live from yesterday. Um, but yeah, Anschutz was also a donor to the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation, both of which supported Gorsuch's nomination to the Supreme Court. Boop. Um, so yeah, so Anschutz, his money comes from oil, railroads, telecom, real estate, and entertainment. Oh, and then it says, what is particularly noteworthy is that in 2006, a letter was written by an attorney on behalf of Anschutz to President George W. Bush's legal counsel, Harriet Mears? Myers? I don't know if this is Myers or Mears. I like the way Myers sounds better, so I'm going to say that. Shit, fuck, I don't know. Harriet Myers recommending Gorsuch for a seat on the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. Gorsuch was nominated and confirmed for the appellate? Is it appellate? Appellate? I don't know how the fuck to say words, man. If you drink, you should take a shot every time I say I don't know how the fuck to say this. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. You'll get alcohol poisoning. Um, Gorsuch was nominated and confirmed for the appellate court seat. The letter read, I'm also a recovering alcoholic, so I keep always suggesting drinking games because it's like I want to drink but I can't, but I keep telling other people to drink. I don't know why I'm like that. I gotta stop doing that. No one should be drinking. Unless you want to drink, then go ahead. But I don't actually drink anymore. That's the alcoholic in me coming out though. Okay, so the letter read, I am writing at the request of Philip F. Anschutz. Mr. Anschutz spoke with Senator Wayne Allard, a Republican senator from Colorado, about Neil Gorsuch, and Senator Allard suggested we pass along Mr. Gorsuch's resume to you. I have had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Gorsuch for several years, as we worked closely together on several complex federal cases. I have found Mr. Gorsuch to be an exceptionally talented lawyer. Huh. I am kissing ass at the request of Philip F. Anschutz. Mr. Gorsuch's ass is who I am kissing. Appellate. Okay, that's how you say it. You learn something new every day. That's yesterday. God damn it. This is daily. I know how to sign. This is daily. That's yesterday. God, fuck, shit, life. I can't speak. I can't sign. That is language deprivation, okay? Language disfluency right here in action. This is what happens when you oralize your deaf kids. This is why we should learn sign language growing up. fuck society. Okay, fucking. Oh shit! So the same lawyer who wrote this letter is listed on LinkedIn at the time of this article, January 2024. I'm about to view this dude's LinkedIn profile. I hate when it's gonna show him I'm looking at him. Um, but hey, okay, Bruce Black, we're talking about you. Oh shit! Yeah, that is interesting. That is interesting. What do we have here? Um, fucking. I had to think about it too because I was like, wait, I'm not signing to my client's LinkedIn, am I? I'm viewing people from my client's LinkedIn. Not on purpose. Not on purpose. That was my profile, I swear. I've been snorting a lot lately. I don't think I used to be a snorter, but I'm like a snorter now. Like, take that out of context. That could be bad. I've never done cocaine before, I swear. I am not Eric Clapton. Um, but who am I convincing? Fucking okay. So I do think that is interesting. Like there is like a connection. So Gorsuch gave up a 1 million-year paycheck when he left his private law practice to become a pellet. You know what? That is so helpful. Court judge and earned 3.28 million and deferred payments in his first 4 years on the federal bench. I also have like two screens, so if y'all see me like doing this, that's why. um, fucking, I've got like these weird filler words. Oh, Gorsuch is pronounced Gorsuch. Oh shit. Can I pronounce it Gorsucks? Is that xenophobic? Should I not? Okay, Gorsuch. Gorsuch. Will do. Gorsuch. That's gonna take some getting used to. Some Gorsuches might slip out, but I'm gonna try to say Gorsuch from now on. Gorsuch. Okay, okay. Gorsuch. Okay. Huh. So, on the Columbia State of the Planet website, it says the irony today is that Gorsuch's son, Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch, may finally have a chance to complete his mother's anti-regulatory and environmentally destructive work. Family business. Who would have thought? Okay. Um, so then there's another article from Abuse of Discretion, and this was also published January 2024. And then it's called Justice Neil Gorsuch urged to recuse himself from Supreme Court case due to close ties to billionaire Phil Anschutz. So I just want to show like more sources from where I'm getting this information. Skimming and scamming here. It looks like we've covered all of this information so far. Here's a little tidbit that I don't think I've processed yet. It says legal experts say overturning Chevron deference could undermine the authority of federal agencies and empower corporations seeking fewer regulations. Professors have warned this may lead to more deregulation, allowing certain industries maximum profits over environmental and public protections. Why do I feel like there's like somehow a connection between all of this and that Family Guy movie with the dome? You know? Oh no, that wasn't the Family Guy. That was the Simpsons. That was the Simpsons, right? Was that Simpsons? That was Simpsons. No, that was totally the Simpsons because Homer. Yeah, no, that was the Simpsons in the dome because Maggie was popping out the dome. I feel we're crazy. Oh, okay. Doesn't think Gorsuch is xenophobic and it works. You know what? All right. So I'm gonna say either I'm gonna try to say Gorsuch if I catch myself slipping, it might switch to a Gore sucks. But yeah, fucking right here, this also says with public trust in the impartiality of the nation's highest court near all-time lows, advocates say the justices must take meaningful steps to avoid even the appearance of conflicts with powerful political financiers who stand to benefit from their rulings. However, the court has so far resisted implementing an enforcement mechanism for its new ethical code of conduct. Mm. Right. So much for the system of checks and balances, am I right? Because it's like, who's checking the Supreme Court when the reason the Supreme Court is so fucked up is because the person who's supposed to check them is part of the reason that those people were put into their positions. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So for any official summary coverage that is has no clickbait, goes straight to the point. Um, I usually go to SCOTUS blog for a lot of my Supreme Court like updates, and Amy Howe. I think I'm saying her name right. Is it Howe or is it Ho? It's Howe, right? No, it's not Ho. Why am I saying Ho? I just want to say Ho. Do I? Howe sounds right. I think. How do you how do you say it? I don't know. Um, fucking. But yeah. So she has coverage here. And she also is who I got my coverage from Aixon versus Loper from the SCOTUS blog as well. Um, but yeah, it has a summary of proceedings and orders that are published by the date as well. And I don't know shit. I mean, I know a little bit of stuff about the steps of civil procedure in terms of like, you know, like your discovery happens and things like that. But like, I don't know what the fuck a brief Michi Curie, what the fuck? I don't know what the fuck any of this shit is. So but for people who know legal things, there is a summary here of all of the proceedings and the orders, um, as well as links to all of the blogs that have been covered on this so far. Um, and so one of them is called Supreme Court to hear major case on power of federal agencies. And probably How. How sounds right. So this is by Amy Howe, published January 2024. And fucking so the oral arguments happened in January 2024 on this case. And the Supreme Court was basically going to hear arguments, about the federal agency's interpretations of the laws that they administer. Um, and it can impact us from healthcare to finance to environmental pollutants. And that's where administrative agencies use highly trained experts to interpret and carry out federal laws. And even though the case sounds technical, it's one of the most closely watched cases of the court's current term, which is filled with blockbuster cases involving abortion, gun rights, and whether a former president is eligible to appear on the ballot. Because the stakes in this case are high, the challengers argued that the current deferential standard is unconstitutional, while the Biden administration contends that overturning the existing doctrine would be a convulsive shock to the legal system. The doctrine at the center of the case is known as the Chevron doctrine. It is named after the Supreme Court's 1984 opinion in Chevron versus Natural Resources Defense Council, and it opposed a regulation issued by the Environmental Protection Agency. Um, so the court must determine whether Congress has directly addressed the question at the center of the case. And if it hasn't, the court must uphold the agency's interpretation of the statute as long as it's reasonable. So, in an article law professor in 2014, Thomas Merrill, suggested that the Chevron decision was not regarded as a particularly consequential one when it was issued, but in the decades since, it has become one of the most significant rulings on federal administrative law, and it's been cited by federal courts more than 18,000 times. That's a lot of times. I wish I had 18,000 bucks. No. I would. I mean, it's not like I would be like rich with 18,000 bucks. I would just be happier. I could go to dinner. I really want some blue crab beignets from La Petite Grocery. I live in New Orleans. It's my favorite, one of my favorite restaurants. Go to Compare Le Pen, get some blue, like some tuna tartare. They got this cold smoked tuna tartare with an avocado puree and ghost pepper caviar, and it's just lit, dude. Okay, I'm sorry, fucking. And I think that lit is AAVE. I'm trying to eradicate that from my language, but so much slang comes from AAVE that I keep finding myself using it. And I'm like, oh God, no, I don't mean to, but I didn't know. And then I can't stop saying it. I'm trying to stop. Fuck, shit. And then it's just like in New Orleans, there's a suburb called Kenner. And ironically, everybody from Kenner, if you ask them where they're from, they'll go, I'm from Kenner, brah. So I started saying Kenner, brah, ironically, and now I can't stop saying Kenner, brah. But I don't know. Fucking, alright. So, fucking decolonizing my language is super hard. Okay, so let's fast forward all of this today. The federal law at the center of the fishing company's challenge is the shit, I can't pronounce that, is the Magnuson-Stevens Act, which gives the Secretary of Commerce and the National Marine Fisheries Service the power to implement a comprehensive fishery management program. So this law requires that a fishery management plan require that one of the observers be carried on board of the vessel for collecting the necessary data to make sure that they're conserving their shit. Um, and it also issued a rule that requires the fishing industry to pay for the costs. So the agency halted the monitoring last year due to lack of funding, and it reimbursed the fishermen for the costs of those observers while that was happening. And after that, the fishing companies, which were led by Loper Bright Enterprises, went to federal court in Washington in 2020 to challenge this. And they were saying it was not authorized by the Magnuson, I don't know how to say that, Stevens Act. But then, relying on Chevron, the district court rejected that argument, holding that because of the Chevron Act, apparently, they can, the agency has, is able to make a ruling on that. Um, so the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit upheld the result, but on a different rationale. It applied that Chevron, but it concluded that the statute was silent on the question whether the law allows them to require them to pay for the cost of the observers, but of the interpretation of the law about obligating the industry rather than the government to bear the cost is a reasonable interpretation under the second step of Chevron, the courts ruled. So that's how it all got connected, and we're here now. Okay, that actually explains a lot to me because I actually didn't understand the connection between the Chevron deference and the Loper Bright case when this all started. And from this blog right here, I get it. Um, so yeah, I always think that's interesting how like, I'll be reading all of this shit, but then it takes me to get to this fucking point for like a light bulb aha moment. Like, oh shit. Okay. Um, but yeah, fucking so there are the in the Supreme Court, the fisheries are represented by former US Solicitor General Paul Clement, as well as lawyers from New York, not New York. God, that says Jersey. And I said New York. I know that says New Jersey. I'm going to blame New York Times being right here. Fucking, okay. I can't read. I feel like I can't even get this idea out. Let's go again. In the Supreme Court, the fisheries are represented by former U.S. Solicitor General Paul Clement, I can't say that, as well as lawyers from the New Jersey public interest firm Cause of Action. The New York Times reported on Tuesday that the lawyers from Cause of Action, who are representing the fishing companies at no cost to them, in fact work for Americans for Prosperity, a group funded by longtime anti-regulation advocate and billionaire Charles Koch. So Americans for Prosperity is funded also by Neil Gorsuch's ass. Oh, um, amicus curiae literally means friends of the court. Oh, that's Latin. That makes sense. Amiga. It's when a non-party is allowed to help a court by submitting information, expertise, or insight on the issues in the case. You know what? I really should know how to pronounce Latin better because, okay, I'm reciting this from memory. I'm not looking at anything. I'm going to close my eyes. So I'm not looking at anything. My eyes are closed. Google the Aeneid. Google the Aeneid and see if I am right. I used to have to memorize the beginning of the Aeneid. Okay? So, Arma virumque cano troiaque primus aboras. Alright? Fucking someone, Mr. Dinwiddie, if you see this, what's up? But actually, my Latin teacher was also my theory of knowledge teacher in high school, and he was a deadhead, and my family liked the Grateful Dead, so he gave me a book about the Grateful Dead because in my theory of knowledge class, I did my senior paper on how Grateful Dead had a subculture of deadheads. So he gave me a book about the Grateful Dead that I still own today. I don't know how I got there. It's because he was my Latin teacher and you were telling me how to pronounce a Latin word, and that is how my brain works. Okay, so back to the shit fuckery that is the Supreme Court. Um, fucking what? So the Chevron doctrine does not limit deference to situations in which agency actually has expertise, and in any event, courts can still consider an agency's expert views even if they are not required to defer to them. Loper Bright insists that the justices can overrule the Chevron doctrine without having to consider principles of stare decisis, the idea that a court should not overrule its earlier decisions unless there is a very good reason to do so. Is that stare decisis or stare decisis? I'm staring indecisively. I used to be indecisive, but now I can't decide. Um, so in Chevron, Loper Bright explained, the Supreme Court weighed in on the definition of a specific term in the Clean Air Act. Although stare decisis analysis may apply to that holding, it does not apply to the interpreted that shit fuck methodology outlined in Chevron. Yeah, those were some words. Okay, so I'm so entertained because I went over here. I went from this blog is explaining things to me perfectly to what the fuck is this saying? But I'm gonna process that later and feel silly now. So, but honestly, I think it would be really funny if attorneys did reaction videos to people getting shit wrong about the law. Oh, Kimmy thinks it's starry. You know what? That sounds right. I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with Van Gogh, Starry Night. Um, oh, yeah. Fucking people like to joke that Van Gogh went deaf when he cut his ear off, but he didn't go deaf because the everything that makes you hear is mostly for the most part on the inside, and that didn't really impact that. He just deformed the outside of the ear. He heard differently because the way you hear is impacted by your outer, middle, and inner ear, but he didn't go completely deaf. I guess he might have made himself hard of hearing. It's the better answer. Hard of hearing stuff too, though, so I guess I'm contradicting myself. Well, great. Now I'm being ableist against Van Gogh. And that dude was super depressed. Like, he was super pretty paintings, though. And he was deaf and blind. Alright. So, I'm assuming that, yeah, right. Lawyers, an attorney, if an attorney's making fun of me, if an attorney ever wanted to make fun of me, fucking shut up about the law, I actually think that would be so funny. I don't even think I pronounced the word law right just then, but y'all know what the fuck I meant, so who cares, right? Um, fucking, I actually love myself. I'm not accessible for anybody. No one can have access to me. I can't speak. I can't sign. Um, but yeah, fucking. You know what's funny though? This article right here says there's been no reliance on Chevron that would justify keeping the doctrine in place. But it's been cited in what was it? It was several thousand. Was it 8,000 or 18,000? So I think those are two contradicting ideas in my head, huh? So how do you cite something but it doesn't have any weight in court, you know? Um, so yeah. Fucking the administration has stressed that the government and the public have relied heavily on the Chevron doctrine, operating on the assumption that Congress passes laws, agencies issue regulations, and courts will review disputes about those regulations with the doctrine in mind. Overruling Chevron now could upend not only an agency's interpretation of a federal law, the administration writes, but also agency programs and regulations that flow from that interpretation. No one can have access to me. Right, Kimmy? Fuck up. Fuck, dude. Yeah. Oh my god, dude, I feel like that bitch in Lord of the Rings. Um, fucking, Sauron, whenever Sauron calls her a man and she's like, I am no man. What's her name? Aowen. Aowen. A-O-W-I-N. I don't know how to spell her name. I think that was right. Ewin. I think that's right. I don't fucking know. Um, but yeah, fucking, filler words. Fucking, alright. So, a brief filed by a group of public health and medical associations led by the American Cancer Society tells the justices that overruling Chevron would have a significant impact on the administration of public health programs such as Medicare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Insurance Program. Echoing the senator's brief, the group maintains that it would essentially be impossible for Congress to draft and continuously update the Medicare and Medicaid statutes with the speed, technical granularity, and the I don't know what this word is. Is it prescience? Prescience? Fuck. I don't know. Needed to anticipate and plug every conceivable statutory hole that might be revealed as the programs are implemented. So a decision in the case is expected by summer. So here's my thing. So on the Aikson versus Loper fucking case, they said a decision in that case was expected by this summer, January 2024. And I had checked in on that October 2023. October 2023, I knew that it was going to be updated summer 2024. Well, those motherfuckers issued a decision winter 2024. They came out. The judgment was came out and came official January 2024, and it gave like a ruling in December of 2023, even though they had said in October 2023 that they would give their ruling summer 2024. So I know it's by summer, so they don't mean in the summer. It could mean any time between now and summer. But I feel like that is so misleading. It's not gonna, you know what I mean? Like you think it's gonna be in the summer, but no, no, no. It could be any time, any moment, any fucking moment. Um, oh, good point. The math ain't mathing on 8,000 sites not holding weight in court. Right, right, right. Thank you. See, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and other times I'm like, yeah, that was a good that you did that was a good gold star, bitch. Go get some ice cream. Fucking so for this argument analysis by Amy Howe from SCOTUS blog, the headline for it is published. It was published January 2024, and the headline is that the Supreme Court is likely to discard Chevron. Um, and fucking because after the oral arguments, it seemed unlikely that the rule outlined in the case, known as the Chevron doctrine, will survive in its current form. A majority of the justices seemed ready to jettison the doctrine or, at the very least, significantly trim it. So, this entire time, we've been talking about what is the case, what does the case mean, what is Neil Gorsuch's and Phil Anschutz's role in this case, and now we're gonna go into what the fuck the Supreme Court bitches said. Oh, learning new words here. Prescience, like precious with an N. It's knowing something before it happens. Oh, okay. Prescience, prescience. I'm learning a new word today. Prescience, knowing something before. Dude, oh my god. I know. I feel silly because I know the word omnipresent. You know what I'm saying? Like, people consider God omnipresent, but the problem of evil, how could God be all knowing, all benevolent, and omnipresent? Um, or something, and evil still exists, or whatever is the philosophical problem of evil. Um, I don't think I worded that right, but I think you know what the fuck I mean. So now I feel like I should have known what prescience, the word prescience was, because I have actually heard that in a similar way before. I just forgot. Or maybe I repressed it. I'm just kidding. But no, thank you for teaching me that. Prescience. Like learning precious with an N. I like that. Okay. Back in. So they're saying that the court's ruling could have ripple effects across the government, as we've been discussing. Um, and it makes sense because they're basically saying we don't need an agency to regulate us because we're just going to let the court decide shit as it happens. But the that just means they're gonna let things continue happening in a certain way, because yeah, courts could eventually be putting stops to things, but there's gonna be a very big time gap before that happens. So what that does is that gives them more time to keep doing what they're doing, um, either temporarily or permanently. So yeah, is kind of what I feel like is happening. Um, it feels very much like the Simpsons movie. I'm really feeling the Simpsons movie coming on. Fucking, yeah. So, under the Chevron doctrine, even if all 9 Super Court justices agree that the fishing vessel's interpretation of federal fishing law is better than the NMFS's interpretation, they would still be required to defer to the agency's interpretation as long as it was reasonable. Such a result is not consistent with the rule of law. Because the fishing companies had come to the Supreme Court asking them to weigh in on the rule itself, but also to overrule it. So that's I could see the hypocrisy there. And so now they're saying, that the cost for this small business is a factor. I mean, honestly, I feel like the government should pay for this shit, though. But, why would we do that when we can fund genocide overseas, too? Um, so under the doctrine of stare decisis, is it stare decisis? Shit. the idea that courts should generally adhere to their prior cases. The court would need a truly extraordinary justification to overrule, but when they don't have that, is what U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar is saying to try to get them to leave the doctrine in place because it has deep roles in the court's jurisprudence. So I know jurisdiction is a court's authority over a matter. Is jurisprudence given context clues? Um, like the logic of the court in a way. I don't know. Learning words. Kind of want to Google that. Fucking. Oh yeah, learning. Oh, Kimmy and I are both learning today. It's a learning night. I'm so glad. Thank you for being here with me. I really appreciate you. And I only got 2 more sources to look at after this, so we're gonna wrap this up. Last night I did a 3-hour live. I was like, oh shit, I have no clue how long it's been now, but oh shit, it's been an hour and a half. Fuck. I think I might finish in 30 minutes. Um, fucking, where are we at? Marco. So yeah, so we're gonna look at these statements because right now this person is breaking down the different statements of the Supreme Court, and I'm gonna show you guys some of the statements that were highlighted by C-SPAN. Um, but basically, the 3 liberal justices expressed support for keeping the doctrine in place. Um, Oh, I want to read Ketanji Brown Jackson. She said that the Chevron doctrine serves an important purpose. Under Chevron, she suggested, Congress gives federal agencies the powers to make policy choices, such as filling gaps or defining terms in the statute. But if Chevron is overturned and agencies no longer have that power, she predicted, then courts will have to make those kinds of policy decisions. And then the justices and advocates also debated that the impact of a decision overruling Chevron would be. And they were saying that the effect might be relatively minimal because they were saying that the Supreme Court had not relied on Chevron in several years. However, you're bringing it up now, and it's been brought up in thousands of cases. Um, Marco, I'm having so much fun being here. I appreciate you. Oh my god, I love playing Marco Polo though. Okay. Um, Whenever I'm looking for inanimate objects, I'll be playing Marco Polo with shit that can't respond back to me. Fucking. Alright. So. I forgot who the fuck Martinez is, though. In this. Okay, Roman Martinez represents one of the groups of fishing vessels. Alright. He rejected any suggestion that the Chevron doctrine should be limited but not overruled. The justices, he said, should recognize that the fundamental problem is Chevron itself. By the time the session drew to a close, it seemed but was not completely clear that a majority of the justices agreed with him. Damn. Fucking shit up for all of us, I think. So, this little article, or it's not even, I don't even think this is like an article. I don't really know what to call this web page, but there's a page online from the Alliance for Justice. It's in their 2023 to 2024 Supreme Court term preview. They did have a section on administrative law about Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo, which is the case that we've been discussing here. And the argument was held January this year, and I just found out about it today from last night's live deciding to Google this fucking shit. Um, fucking, dude, yeah. So Neil Gorsuch's ass was taking a strong stance against the doctrine. Go figure. I wonder why. So this is something he has a vested interest in, and he's taking a very strong stance in it. But he doesn't think he needs to recuse himself or that he's not biased. I think that's interesting. Um, so this article, the Alliance for Justice, is publishing this as having could be upending decades of administrative law regarding our health and safety. Um, and that the Chevron doctrine is at the core of the administrative law and it requires courts to defer to agency expertise. To better explain how Chevron works, let's take a brief look at the FDA. The FDA is tasked with determining whether a new medication is safe and effective. The agency is staffed with thousands of experts, from public health specialists to research scientists to physicians. I can't speak. I know how to say this word. I just can't say it today. Physician, anemone. I feel like finding Nemo. An anemone. Physicians. God damn it. Fuck. Doctors. Research scientists to doctors, all of whom work together to make this. Or is this a doctor, or is this like a physics? Is a physician like a doctor or a physics person? But then is a physics person a doctor because they could have their doctorate? God damn it. I don't fucking. Okay, so specialists, professionals in their field, all of whom work together to make this complex decision. Under Chevron, these experts get to decide what constitutes safe and effective when it comes to approving new drugs. If the court overturns Chevron, individual judges could have the power to ignore experts in these agencies, transforming the way complex policy decisions are made in the U.S. And all I'm saying is that a Supreme Court that does not believe that abortion is medical care is not a Supreme Court I trust to be making any other medical decisions for me. You know what the fuck I'm saying? So I wanted to do like a reaction to the video. I wanted to do like a whole live that was gonna be just a reaction to this oral argument, but I can't get these fucking captions to work on C-SPAN. But what they do have is like they have a transcript where you can see like the text for key sections. So I just figure what I'm gonna do is go through the points of interest. I don't think I'm gonna read all of it, but kind of skim the points of interest for the arguments provided by C-SPAN from January this year for the oral arguments of Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo, and this is linked in the description of this video. So starting with Paul Clement, and this is at 42 seconds, so up in here. So one key moment is this section that they highlighted, and that's basically just the introduction. Fuck. So there's another thing I do is I won't even be wanting to say the word that comes out of my mouth. Like I know I want to say the word introduction, but an entirely different word pops out. And I'm like, why? Oh, physician is medical, physicist is physics. You know what? I never knew that. Thank you for telling me. Physician, physicist. Those are hard words. That makes sense. Fucking. Okay, so Congress, right? So in the beginning, Paul Clement was argumenting. Is that even a word? Is argumenting a word? I don't know what I'm saying. So Paul Clement, in his argument for Loper Bright Enterprise, he was saying that fucking that for his client having to carry the federal observers on board was a burden and having to pay their salaries was crippling. And I never saying Congress recognizes this much by strictly limiting the circumstances in which domestic fishing vessels can be battled with moderating costs and capping them at 2 to 3% of the value of the catch. Okay, so this is the text here is compiled from uncorrected closed captioning, which is probably why that's not correct. Um, okay. And then he says there is no justification for giving the tithe to the government. The fuck does that mean? I think a de novo review is whenever you review something as if it was new and you don't take in a past history to it. But I could be wrong on that. Um, versus like if a review without that's not de novo would account for the past. So they're saying a de novo review asking only what is the best reading of the statute. Asking instead is the statute ambiguous is fundamentally misguided. The whole point was to bring clarity and not to identify ambiguity. Holy fuck. This is a legal argument. He said, we have no beef with the Chevron Clean Air Act. I can't believe that's how lawyers speak to the Supreme Court. To the Supreme Court, I have no beef with you. This is what an attorney is saying in his introductory legal arguments for the Environmental Protection Agency. That is fucking hilarious to me. I don't know why. Is that a professional way for lawyers to talk to the Supreme Court? I mean, fuck this Supreme Court. It's not like I really respect them. But, like, professionally speaking, like, who the fuck just goes into court talking to the judge? Like, I don't have beef with you, to the judge as an attorney. Oh yeah. De novo reviews are when courts decide an issue as if it's being heard for the first time. Yes. Okay. Cool. See, sometimes it's like, well, I remember that. If either of the attorneys that ever trained me or watched this shit, I was paying attention, even though I smoked hella weed. I remember shit. Fucking. But yeah, I think that is interesting. My guy, what? Yeah. Oh, or did you just catch the beef thing? We have no beef with the Chevron Clean Air Act holding, and we cannot take issue with the APA holding because it failed to mention that statute. I can't get past this line. It's gonna be so funny. Why did your live stream take so long last night? Because I was talking about this attorney telling the Supreme Court he has no beef with an act for 20 fucking minutes. Because I was stuck on this for 20 fucking minutes. No, I'm gonna get off of this, but yeah, okay. I feel validated now because I was like, I don't like that is wild to me. Okay, so Justice Thomas, I don't know what this Q means for these points of interest. I don't know if that's like a question or what, but this point of interest is labeled as Justice Thomas use of, I don't know, mandamus. Let's see what this one is, and that's at the 5-minute 4. Let's go find them. So at that point, the auto captioner says there is such a contention in this. Interruptive authority means discretion. It means there are multiple meanings that you can take from something, and someone has to choose among those meanings. It seems like most people agree if the statute uses reasonable, that Congress is delegating the definition of reasonable to the agency. The agency is deciding what is reasonable within some outer limits, either set within the statute or within the law. The point is, it is great rhetoric, Mr. Clement, but we do delegate. We have recognized allegations to agencies from the beginning of the founding of interpretation. I am at a loss to understand where the argument comes from. Okay, so it actually looks like at the beginning of this right here, Justice Thomas is saying he doesn't get the fucking argument. So that's interesting. Um, and then Justice Sotomayor, on discretion versus delegation, arbitrary and capricious things change on the ground. Says, oh wait, that's what I just read, but I think my bad. Oh no, now I see. Okay, so in this 48-second mark, so this point of interest had 2 points of interest at the 42-second mark, and that was Paul Clement and Justice Thomas. But I don't know who said what because that's not really labeled here. Now I see what happened. Okay, so Justice Sotomayor is who I read next. About the argument, not knowing where the argument comes from. The next point of interest, there's 2 points of interest here at the 10-minute and 30-second mark. And that's from Chief Justice Roberts on ambiguity and a number of different interpretations, as well as Justice Kagan, what does Congress want? But I don't really know who said what because that's not labeled here. But they were basically saying, bringing it home to the statute. What I would say is if you do the Chevron ambiguity test, if I never like a pro it in the statute, or maybe for some people carry. I don't know. You know what? I wanted to read all of this. I'm glad I did start reading this because I caught that beef line, but this isn't going the way I thought it would because this is in all caps. I can't on my computer. There's like a button. I don't know if you can see where my mouse is. When I click this button, there's a button right here that I can then turn on live captions. But for some fucking reason, it doesn't show up on my live stream. Like it's not showing up in my I'm using OBS to record this, and it doesn't show up on my live stream at all when I try to do the live caption on here from this app that I'm clicking in the top right screen of my fucking right over here. So normally this button gives me captions. And it does give me captions, but it won't put it on the screen. So, fucking. But yeah. Oh, so I'm getting distracted, but I'm going to try and go through these a little bit. But right here it says, if you strip away Chevron, this is a fairly easy case where you just make Congress had this question in mind in one place, or actually it replaces the specific. Would every domestic fishery, they only gave it in 2 instances, and both it can be no more 2 or 3%. If you're arguing if the statute is not ambiguous on that question, if I'm arguing the best reading of the statute is that my client wins. Is that an argument? If I am arguing the best reading of the statute is that my client wins, maybe kind of missed his reasoning because of the way that this is inaccessible to me here, but I feel like that was like just bad wording. Okay. Um, let's see if there's any other points. Around the 16-minute 5-second mark. It talks about Justice Sotomayor with gridlock and Justice Barrett on stare decisis. Oh, Kimmy Locker comes in. My bad. She says, yeah, the Q means, she thinks a Q means question, and a mandamus is when a higher court orders a lower court to do what they're legally required to do. Oh, that makes sense. Or not to do when they're legally prohibited from doing it. It's considered an extraordinary remedy which should only be used in exceptional circumstances of peculiar emergency or public importance. Thank you, Kimmy. Kimmy Locker. She does paralegal and counseling and things like that, something like that. I don't know. I want to promote you, but I don't know what words to use because I don't know enough about what you do. But she does shit. She knows shit. She knows some things. I am pretty sure she's good at marketing and with the law. I assume you know a little bit about marketing because you know about the live stream. But yeah, fucking yes. I don't have beef, and my client wins. Were said by the same lawyer, as far as I can tell. Who said what is not labeled, but the points of interest are highlighted right here, and it didn't tell me who said what, but I think that's who was saying it. Um, but yeah, fucking around the part where Justice Sotomayor on gridlock and Justice Barrett on stare decisis, uh, one of those two, I think, were saying they want to leave it ambiguous because this is how they were going to get over the hurdle. Um, because they don't have enough votes in Congress to make it clear. And then they're talking about some hypothetical shit. So, I don't know. Let's see. So then they were talking about how Chevron was initially popular. Um, so then they asked, one of them was asking Mr. Clement this question. Basically, they were asking what has changed with Chevron being an improvement. And Clements answered that it was partially an improvement, but what has changed and what hasn't changed was the statutory interpretation has come a long way. Um, but the focus is much greater on the text of the statute. And once you recognize that, you recognize the problem deferring at a certain point to the agencies. Okay, so what I don't understand with this attorney though is, or with this attorney, or with the client even, whether it's the attorney or the client, um, doing all this. What I don't fucking get is why fucking make this whole lawsuit like about canceling the Chevron. Why not make the lawsuit just about getting the government to pay for this shit? Instead, because for me, my interpretation of this all is it looks like these people The government basically, according to their regulations, required fishermen to pay for an agency to monitor them, right? And the fishermen couldn't afford the agents to pay for that agency to monitor them. And so instead of saying, hey, why don't you guys pay for us to be monitored? They're just saying, no, let's just do away with monitoring the environment altogether. You know what I mean? I don't get this fucking logic. It's like kids having a fucking temper tantrum. Like, what the fuck is happening? Am I having a temper tantrum? Like, what is happening? Um, okay, I was gonna go through all of these. Let's see, but I'm already a third of the way done. Okay, so just these next two highlights are labeled. The next 2 points of interest are labeled Gore sucks ass, Skidmore and interpretation, and Justice Kagan, Skidmore and interpretation. Um, but basically, somebody said, let's see here. So somebody said, I went to the dictionary and looked up deference. The most common definition is yielding to the will of another. I think if that is the definition, you should not apply Chevron or Skidmore, rather in a way where you can actually say, all right, this is super close. I think I have the right answer, but I'm going to yield to the position of the executive branch. The way to use Chevron and Skidmore together here leads me to believe, even though I know nothing about Skidmore, that it is another legal case that set precedent. And then right here it says, Skidmore has been understood or said that the persuasiveness of the government's interpretation depends upon the circumstances and some of those you enumerated. Call it what you will, that is what it is. Oh, Kimmy Locker is a business consultant, which is pretty broad, but essentially means she's a problem solver and or helps with strategy development and planning. So she does shit. She knows shit. It's fantastic promo. Yes, I love that because that's also very similar and aligned with what I do. So I do have like I was saying, like I have my two clients on retainer right now between um fucking like 15, 30. It fluctuates on what they need with what the clients need. But it's never more than 35 to 40 hours a week right now. And so then, because I have these two clients that take up my full time life, what I do outside of that, I only do consultations, nothing else. And so people are like, can I get you to do my social media? No, but I will consult. I'm not doing shit, not doing nothing. I love that you're consulting. It's very rewarding to me. Um, and I just have a feeling you're really good at it because you've already educated me a lot and you're just in my comment section. So it's like imagine what you can do with someone that you're having a real conversation with, you know? Um, the next key points of interest that C-SPAN highlighted for us here are from, let's see, Justice Kagan on Kaiser and deference, Justice Gorsuch's ass on Scalia and Chevron and humility, and Justice Kavanaugh on the evidence of the original statute, respect versus deference. Um, so one of these people said, with respect, Your Honor, this court has on multiple occasions corrected its own errors when it comes to statutory interpretation, how to deal with qualified immunity, implied causes of action. In the Encino Motor case, there was a canon of construction that said exemptions, the FLSA provisions could be construed narrowly. This court overruled an event that should have no role to play in interpreting the FLSA. He did not run through the stare decisis factors. I don't know whether, I guess it is called stare because that's how this captioner got it. I don't know whether you call it humility or just clarity, but when the question is judicial methodology, I think it's very weird to ask Congress to fix your problems for you. I don't think you want to invite or candor that particularly foughts into your hen's house to tell you how to go about interpreting statutes or dealing with qualified immunity. And then somebody else said, in Kaiser 5 justices, a majority of this court make clear that our deference would subject to normal judicial or normal principles or stare decisis. To the extent there was a ratcheting up, ratcheting down, it ratcheted them up. It understood that deference decision supported was the basis for tens, hundreds, thousands of other decisions. This is the craziest Supreme Court fucking like I don't know, man. The way they speak, they're over here like, this is like a millennial fucking song. Like, what is that song about having beef with your boyfriend? Shit. There's a song about, and if he's got beef, no, I'm a vegetarian. Something about beef. God damn it. There's a song about being a vegetarian and about beef, and I can't think about it. But okay, so why is that bothering me so much? But anywho, so they're talking about ratchet, being ratcheting up, ratcheting down. Like they're talking about beef. They're talking about I don't know. It's just wild to me. Like, is this a Supreme Court ruling or is this a street fight? You know what I mean? Um, And then the third thing that they were saying was basically saying, I think I can reconcile all of your law by saying when it is a procedural rule or court made road of interpretation, maybe we look to the same factors. They do not apply with the same way as they would if they were substantial result. That does make sense, at least in our view of the road. We drew Locke from a bad terminology. You don't overturn those rules. Section 1982 still has an applied cause of action, 1981. Those cases don't get overturned. And then I guess, so right here it says Justice Gore sucks ass with a question mark. Um, and fucking, it actually, I was gonna say it doesn't say Gore sucks ass for people who are not reading this, but um, to me it does say Gore sucks ass. But anywho, fucking I think that's him speaking. He said, one lesson of humility is to admit when you are wrong. Then why the fuck didn't you recuse yourself, dipshit? I'm sorry, I'm so aggressive. I haven't slept. I need to, but you know, fuck you. Not you, but you. So yeah, fucking, sorry, I lost my place. Don't trust me by 303. You tell your boyfriend if he says he's got beef. Yes, that's it. That's the song. Thank you, Kimmy. See, Kimmy's coming through. Yes. She knows shit. She does shit. She knows shit. That's it. You tell your boyfriend if he says he's got beef that I'm a vegetarian and I ain't fucking scared of him. That's it. Yeah. Fucking all right. Yeah, we're totally like halfway done. Um, fucking. So I apparently it's like Justice Kavanaugh with on Chevron and Skidmore. Justice Kavanaugh on judicial restraint and humility, and Justice Kavanaugh, if we overrule, we should decide the statutory issue. Oh, that's also the song that says "Do the Helen Keller and talk with your hips." Fuck, I forgot that one. Yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah, a lot of ableist shit has been coming out about Helen Keller lately. People keep saying that like they don't think she's real and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my god. Um, wait, where the fuck was I? I keep thinking I know where I am, and then I get like confused. No, I definitely covered this already. No, that's too far back. Okay, this is where I'm at. Okay, so one of them said the biggest difference between Skidmore and Chevron is that when the agency changes position every 4 years, that it's going to fill you the Chevron deference. But Skidmore, with respect to that interpretation, will drop out. It is not consistent and contemporaneous or consistent from the contemporaneous aspect. Um, and then somebody else said, absolutely, it's a matter of difference. If you look at some of the things Justice Scalia said in the beginning when he was enthusiastic about the doctrine, he viewed the fact that agencies flip flop as being an affirmative virtue. And then it says Justice Kagan raises an important point about humility in times of Chevron. You have no fucking humility. Anywho, that an important concern for any judge. The flip side is the other concern for any judge's abdication to the executive branch running through roughshod, I don't know, over limits established in the Constitution or, in this case, by Congress. I think we have to find, or that is why it's hard to find, the right balance between restraint and letting the executive get away with too much. On that front, there is a question earlier. Do judges really rely on Chevron? Um, So, if you don't rely on Chevron, why have you cited it so much? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we made that point already. Okay. Um, and then they were later on they were saying, I'm not so naive to say it's going to solve all the problems with the emergency docket, but it's going to make it a lot better. Um, Somebody is going to litigate whether it is a crypto contract just as they are confident that AI is going to get here because of the statute, and it is more likely that they're going to say there is some scientific thing. My own view of this is not cure at all, but it's going to move things very much in the right direction. Maybe it's because I'm not following along word by word, but some of their arguments, or maybe it's because I also don't understand the context of all of these cases. But some of these fucking arguments, I just feel like are very not connected. Or I don't understand the connection. Because, so the problem with the emergency docket that they think Chevron could solve would be multiple cases coming up. So he's basically saying, I'm not so naive to say that nixing the Chevron thing would solve all of these cases coming up, but it would make it better. But here's the thing. So right now they're saying, right, here's why I don't get it, because it says on the docket we've had multiple cases in which they've come up. Do you think that Chevron is going to solve that problem? If that problem they're referring to here are multiple cases coming up, if you get rid of Chevron, that means you're now going to have to deal with those cases. So wouldn't that make it worse? Because if you keep Chevron, the agencies deal with the cases. You know what I mean? So aren't you being a fucking hypocrite? That's just that I'm just curious, just asking a question for the class. Um, Right. Kimmy's got beef with some of the logic too. I want some steak. Like I really want like a rare steak right now, like a medium rare steak, like a rare steak. Like I want a juicy steak with that's like perfectly crusty on the outside, but like rare on the inside. Like I just want a steak. Sorry. We've been talking about beef. Fuck. So yeah, and we were just going over like if the judges rely on Chevron, if they should decide the statutory issue, and if this was a distinct thing. And so next we are looking at statutory silence, statutory interpretation, and role of court. Actually, did I skip one? Oh no, that was just what we looked at. That was what we just looked at. All right, what we just looked at was my bad. Um, the Chevron and SG's answer on it being distinct, overruling Chevron and major questions doctrine, and the argument for Secretary Raimondo, which whatever, I don't really understand what the fuck we're talking about. Oh yeah, I want steak now too. Yeah, they should just do like fine dining that's like 24/7, but that's not expensive. Because I want a good steak. I don't want an Applebee's steak. Um, I mean, I would take an Applebee's steak though. Now I just sound elitist and greedy. I'll take any steak. Shit. Fuck. Um. Oh wait, we're here now. Okay, next one. So now we're on statutory silence, statutory interpretation, role of court, and delegation stance. I'm not sure if I missed anything. I probably did because it's kind of hard for me to keep track of everything. But I think if we didn't go over all of these points of interest, we've definitely covered most of them. Um, so fucking somebody said throughout the litigation at times this morning, petitioners have characterized this case as presenting a fundamental question of the separation of powers and a test of Article 3. Will courts continue to say what the law is? But I want to make sure what doesn't get lost in the shuffle is that petitioners have made an important concession that I think illustrates that the issue here is actually far narrower and their attacks on Chevron lack merit and are unnecessary. Oh shit. Do I actually agree with this person? That's surprising. I have to be a fluke. Um, And then it says the concession is this: petitioners acknowledge Congress can expressly delegate to agencies the authority to define terms and fill gaps. And imagine if the statute said that they're asked to define the administrator. I take both petitioners to give that up and recognize that is a delegation and courts should respect that. The role of a court in that circumstance is to make sure the agency has followed the procedures and states within whatever outer bounds of Congress has set. And all of that complies with the Constitution, of course, because Congress has the authority to delegate the gap authority to agencies, and the executive has core Article 2 authority to fill in those gaps. That's the core exercise of the executive power. Then the Article 3 courts are just fulfilling their judicial role when they will give effects to what Congress has done and their choice to rely on the agency in that regard. But I think what all of this shows is the constitutional attacks on Chevron and the suggestion that it is egregiously wrong lacks merit because there's no constitutional distinction between what kind of expressed delegation and the delegations recognized in Chevron. If Congress can expressly invest an agency with the authority to interpret the law through an express delegation, and then they could do the same thing, especially in our world where Congress has to provide the agency with the expressed authority to carry the statute into operation with the effect of law. Now we can debate whether they drew the right line in identifying exactly when these delegations have occurred. I think they got that right for all the reasons that I tried to explain this morning. But I think it's important to recognize that debate doesn't have a constitutional dimension to it that will fall out of the equation, and that it is just a question of whether they drew that right line. If you recognize that, and what is left over are the practical concerns that have been raised about Chevron, and I don't want to show you the force of the concerns that some members have articulated, but those concerns are manageable. The court could do in this case what it did in Kaiser, and it could clarify and articulate the limits without taking the drastic step. And that is the right thing to do there. And that they will be calling a part of the rules here. In this case, they will decide to counsel in favor of the retaining Chevron. I welcome the court's decisions. Oh, I welcome the court's questions. Okay. And then somebody else said, and so I think it would be wrong to suggest that you can neatly categorize cases as those involving silence and those involving ambiguity. I recognize that you spoke to those terms and they were trying to be showing you where they directly resulted in the issue. And they are going to have to appoint to the rule and a directive from Congress to put that into effect, where it will be at least the baseline of the context. And that would help with their authority. And this is the perfect example, as they said, that the act here is silent on the issue of whether the industry could be required to pay for monitors. So we will have four that we pointed to that will undermine the authority, and that it could have said they required the vessels to carry the monitor, and that it could include a private third party in the penalty provision that says in a circumstance where they have contracted with a private third party and not paid, the agency can penalize. Finally, the authority to enact necessary and appropriate terms. So we don't think this is the case about that at all. Okay, I don't understand what they're saying the case is not about, though. Because that was a whole lot for you to say we don't think the case is about that at all. The case isn't about what, though? Be specific, assholes. Um, and then someone says, we think that the statute will be clear. And then someone else said, the fact that you think it is clear and they thought it was ambiguous should tell us something, shouldn't it? Oh, I'm so glad I stayed for this line. That should tell you something, but did it tell you anything? Did you learn from this? Okay, let's continue. So the Justice Gorsuch's ass on the EPA case and Justice Sotomayor on 706 and Chevron are what we're looking at next for these next two highlights. So I think this is Justice Gorsuch's ass, but I'm not entirely sure. But I think it's him, and it says, I disagree that there is a fiction of delegation in the circumstances that will trigger Chevron. At the outset, I want to make perfectly clear that of course the statutory context and structure is one of the important tools of interpretation that a court should use as a step one. If we're in a world where the court can walk through these factors and ascertain that Congress spoke to the issue, let me be very clear. We recognize that they should get us back to what Congress was saying. If you're suggesting then, in a world where Congress hasn't actually spoken to the issue, the court should give no respect at all to the agency's interpretation. I disagree that this is implementing Congress's intent. What they recognize in a circumstance where they have not spoken to the issue, given the express grant of rulemaking authority to the agency, and necessarily recognize that the agency is going to have to fill the gap along the way. It's perfectly sensible to I'm assuming that's actually supposed to be assume. It's perfectly sensible to assume they want the agency to do it. So yeah, I think I'm maybe, unless I don't understand what this is saying, I think I do. I think I agree with this. I think that they're saying that it is reasonable for the agency to regulate, you know, and that we shouldn't be dismissing the Chevron here is what I think they're saying. Um, but yeah, too bad like court cases are in legalese and you can't understand what the fuck is happening. So then somebody says, let me ask you about Michigan versus EPA too. It is somewhere in between, so forth, and to come up with rules about the meaning of the word and essentially appropriate is necessary. Did the court find there are outer boundaries that there can be exceeded, right? Then the response was yes, absolutely. We are not suggesting in that road. Um, and they said, so you can do that, right? And they said, what I'm disputing is the idea that there is an answer either way rather than the discretion. And someone said there is an agency. And they said, yes, under review. If I understood my friend correctly today, he seems to suggest in all contexts you could look and say they dictated that, or an answer with respect to how did they find that source. What they recognize and what I think is just absolutely true is a matter of the on the ground realities and how they legislate, that Congress doesn't actually decide all of these issues. When Congress hasn't decided it and some follow on, they will need to fill in the gap. It's a question of whether it should be the courts or agency. There's a presumption here that they intended it to be the agency, but always subject to the guardrails about making sure the construction is reasonable. Okay, so my understanding here is they are debating the whether the original intent of these laws were to ever place authority with court or an agency. Right, legalese is a whole nother language, and it's like, fuck. And then it's so funny watching attorneys argue too over legalese because it really reminds you it's just like any other language, you know, people will fight over the meaning and the semantics of words, but that's, you know, an attorney's job. Um, okay, so now we're looking at Brand X and from Justice Barrett as well as Justice Kavanaugh at the state level and principle of deference to administrative agencies. So someone said I have a question about the relationship between Brand X. Are you referring to Twitter? And it says in your suggestion that we Kaiserized Chevron essentially. I understand Brand X to say a court must let go of its best interpretation of the statute if they advance in a plausible one. One way to handle this is say what we said in the Kaiser context that no, use all the tools and come up with your best interpretation. Why should we take on Brand X? And then it says, if you understand Brand X to hold that the court thinking it has the best interpretation and figured out what Congress is saying about the issue and Congress spoke, nevertheless has to adopt an inferior interpretation, then that's inconsistent with our approach. We don't read Brand X that way. I understand Brand X to be distinguishing between step 1 and step 2 holdings. So if there's a step 1 holding where, in fact, the court has got it at the end of the day and recognizes that Congress spoke to the issue, there's no room under Brand X to let the agency come along under the fact and say they should be understood in some different way. It's only in the circumstance where there was Chevron granted under step 2. A part of that is recognizing that because the statute was interpreted at the first time to not actually supply an answer dictation by Congress. So now I'm like, okay, is that a hypothetical thing? At first I thought they were fucking talking about Twitter, dude. But they're basically, I think they're proposing a hypothetical situation, and then they're saying because of the interpretation, then you might say, look, I'm 90% confident or I'm 95% confident. But I mean, I think your reading of brand X might depend on the trigger for ambiguity. Um, and then they're talking about what do the states have related to Chevron now. And somebody said that their understanding was like half the states still had something related to the principle of it. Hmm. Okay. And then they're talking about the Chevron applied to constitutional questions and about interpreting rules. So somebody said, did I understand you in response to the question for Justice Thomas to say Chevron doesn't apply to constitutional questions? And someone else said, yeah, it's only a doctrine that applies in statutory interpretation. And somebody else said it could have an effect on that. Does it apply in that situation? The Department of Education will have some role. This will apply to all schools, and it could apply to religious schools because this is how we interpret, whatever the impact of the rule is. When we interpret it that way, we don't think that there is any free exercise problems. So is there a Chevron difference there? And then somebody else said, I think if a particular interpretation creates serious constitutional problems, then they avoid instances. One of the traditional tools that the court could consult in order to understand if Congress is up to the issue. And then somebody else says the agency says they don't think this causes a particular constitutional problem. That is our expertise about how we apply this provision. Given that, we think there is no free exercise problem. And then somebody else says, no, a court would not defer to that. And that is all happening in step one. I think this is a part of the process of the court determining whether Congress spoke to the issue, and the court has been very clear. The difference doesn't come in at all unless you get to step two. Um, and so yeah, they're going basically it's a big debate about what is the impact of these laws. Um, okay, great. So we've got five of these points of interest left to go over real quick. So these are from Justice Kavanaugh on adjudication, Justice Kagan on fictionalized intent, and Justice Sotomayor, I don't know if I'm saying that right, who cares, on statute and monitors. Um, so somebody said, and I think it circles us back to the fact that they do not suggest that those rules are going to trigger the differences. So it's so from those cases from the agency, it's an important process. And somebody else, or in another statement is, and on that front, they will talk specifically about that in particular and how that agency will move from that post fairly often. There's a concern raised there, and that is a situation that you cannot suggest your behavior ahead of time, necessarily based on the new rule and the new changes and what this has done in that case that will affect the people that didn't have a notice or any response to that brief or scenario. And then somebody else says that it is the set of concerns that they will have to justify it, and whatever tools that they're cruising, and that they're going to have to justify what they're doing. And in particular, they have focused a lot on the idea, and they're changing their minds and the burden that they will need to take account for the interest, and they'll get put into State Farm, I think. But with respect to that, they could take those kind of considerations into account. Why is this not okay? And then this next highlight is on just is about Justice Kagan Kaisering Chevron and changed interpretations. Um, They say to wrap this up, it's unheard of, and I want to be clear that they are latching onto a part of the rule that acknowledged that the cost could go up, and they acted in response to that and created to respect some of the issues in these cases in that range. So this is something that they could look at and review that they were arbitrary for that cost, and rightfully so. And then someone else says, and I just wanted to ask, what would that mean? What would it mean doing that? What would it mean doing what they did to that difference, and would there be adjustments and would be necessary? Would they want to go further in any respect? What does that mean to Chevron? And someone else said, and so I think that the courts in this case that they will have some concerns about the issues. They could do four critical things which will draw heavily and look different in particular. They'll need to re-emphasize that analysis. And then it goes into a big ass legalese explanation of 4 steps for dealing with these issues that I don't have the mental health to understand, but this is all linked in the description. Okay, and then at the end of all of this, Mr. Clement, and I think he's the dude arguing. I'm actually not sure who's arguing for. I think he's arguing to keep. I can't remember if Clement is the one arguing for or against um, the act, honestly, against the Chevron Act. Okay, but he had a rebuttal, and he said, let's see. So the rebuttal's at 114 here. Just a few points. First, my friend started with express delegation, and it will show all the problems with this implied delegation. What they will do is delegate implementing or exercising the authority, and it does not do. Is my caption stopped working? I just realized my caption stopped working. Hold up, sorry. The fuck are you doing? Why don't you love me? I fucking hate this shit. I hate technology. Okay. Fucking. Alright, I'm not reading all this. Fucking. Okay, so at the end of all of this, there was a longer rebuttal. But they were basically saying you cannot, and they ended this with, you cannot Kaiserize the Chevron doctrine without overruling Brand X. The fact you can take into account the agency had flip-flopped and it was a part of the rationale would Kaiser before you applied it, and that is a feature, my friend, and that is a feature, and you can't Kaiserize it without overruling Brand X, and that it just went out the window, and we might as, oh, that's the end of the transcript. It doesn't show me the end of it. Literally doesn't show me any other words. Um. All right. So that is the end of this. Okie dokie. So I'm just ending everything, summarizing here. So this live was a bit of a shit fuck. So we went over a lot today. Woo. Yeah. Why don't you love me? Why aren't you working? Um. I'm going to refresh this. Alright, refreshing it. Maybe that'll work. Fucking. So, fucking, yeah, dude. What the fuck are you doing? Cracked me up. Yeah, I'm sure you know, we call these craptions because they suck. Like, they suck so bad. So bad. Like, the captions, like, you can't even tell what the fuck they're saying. Like, so, yeah, but so today, like we've talked a lot yesterday about Phil Anschutz and Neil Gorsuch and about their connection, about how the music industry basically has been a way to kind of siphon funds and help Neil Gorsuch and Phil Anschutz. Um, and so today, and so from that live, I was like, okay, if I see a case that involves both of them, I have to cover it. And so then I woke up and like I was like, okay, today I look and I find this case, and I'm just like, I have to do this live. So today, we touched on that a little bit, reviewing that history of the connection between Phil Anschutz and Neil Gorsuch, but we focused less on the music industry and more on their relationship in connection to this specific case here. And then now we are fucking just wrapping up talking about the entire case, basically where we're going over Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo, where it involves the Chevron deference, that's up in the air. And so a decision is expected to come from the Supreme Court this summer, but it could happen anytime between now and this summer. But it's basically spring now, summer's coming up, so Uh, I expect it perhaps maybe in a month or so, but who knows? Like, who knows what will happen? Um, but yeah, no, thank you so much for being here. It means just a lot to me because, like I am really passionate about like this material. So for others to like it's just really fun that like, someone else is here too and cares and like about everything that I've been talking about. You know my references more than I know my references. I couldn't even remember what the fuck I was talking about, but so no, that I really appreciate you being here. Like it really means a lot, and I like thank you for processing this with me. Um, but yeah, oh, you haven't heard craptions before? Yeah, craptions are a thing. It's so funny to me because like how much the captioner gets wrong, and at a specific level you start to, when you know the topic, you start to know what to look out for and what's going to change. And so if it says dead and it's about a death topic, you know that it is probably, it just did it. It's death, not death, but yeah, so sometimes it's like the auto captioner will make a common or the same or a similar mistake all the time. So then you know what's happening because you know the common mistakes it could be too. Um, but yeah, fucking I can't think. It's like 1:30 in the morning. Um, I'm gonna go finish getting ready for bed. I hope you sleep well tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad you enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of like everything you're doing also. Um, yeah, thank you for being here, Kimmy. It really means a lot to me. I'm really glad I connected with you. But yeah, thank you, and I hope you have a beautiful night. I have, oh, here it is. Okay, I have like pre-recorded outros, and I couldn't see my button for my outro for a second, so I was fumbling. But I just found it. All right, thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. You might want to adjust the volume after all of this because a loud music is going to play. So yeah, adjust the volume. And then if you're coming to these lives anyway, I do have a loyalty program, nolo.child.com/loyalty. If you sign up for my site as a member and you follow the check-in procedure, you can get points just for showing up to these lives anyway. So I just want to let you know about that. Yeah, about that. Yeah, I always have a really hard time saying goodbye because saying goodbye really just kind of feels like you're Tom Hanks. You know what I mean? Over here, just like Wilson. But anywho, yeah. So thank you for being here and goodbye.